What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Afro Ida coming back at you once again, and today we're going to talk about another special people in my heart called the Tigrays of Ethiopia. And everybody's special in Africa, that's why I love saying that, so please don't get mad if you hear me saying that a lot about every African ethnic group. I love learning something new every day. I'm basically a historian, and probably should have majored in that in college, but I'm basically a historian. I love learning, especially about African history. That's why I made this channel. So if you hear me say another special group, everybody in Africa is special people, okay? But I want to talk about the Tigrayans specifically, just because they're actually a group related to the Amhara people, and they essentially come from, like, I would say the same, like, not lineage, but I guess like the same background in regards to their language and culture. But let's get into it a little bit about who they are. So the Tigrayans are essentially an ethnic group in the Tigray region of northern Ethiopia. They speak the Tigrinya language, and in Ethiopia there are about 7.095.477 million people, which is according to the 2020 census. Most of them are in the Tigray region, and about over 90% of them are Christian. The great majority of these Christians are about Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, which they've been Ethiopian Orthodox for a very, very long time, okay? Like I said in my last videos, in case you didn't know, if I didn't say it in my last videos, forget I said that, but I'm saying it now. Ethiopians are probably one of the oldest people on the planet to accept Christianity. The Orthodox Church is very old. Even the oldest Bible on the planet was basically found in Ethiopia, pretty much just found in Ethiopia. So just want to put a note on that. But they're traditionally agriculturalists as well. And just to go back to religion real quick, there are minorities and Muslims amongst them. And since the 19th century, they also have a minorities of Protestants and Catholics in the Agame region. Now, like I said, going back, they're traditionally agriculturalists, practicing plow agriculture, cultivating teff, sorghum, millet, wheat, maize, etc., and also keeping cattle, sheep, and goats. However, they usually don't actually breed their stocks. And in many areas, they also breed bees as well. But some Tigrayan groups have a strong local identity and used to have their own traditional, quite autonomous self-organization, sometimes dominated by the egalitarian assemblies of elders. Sometimes by like leading families or local feudal dynasties as well. In some areas, the meritocracy, complex played a considerable role in achieving a social status, which led to the creation of local honorary titles and social institutions, and historically to an active involvement in warfare of Christian Ethiopia. So through this, even the sons of simple peasants could rise considerably in the state of the hierarchy, okay? So the daily life of Tigrayans are highly influenced by religious concepts. For example, the Christian Orthodox fasting periods are strictly observed, especially in Tigray, but also traditional local beliefs such as in spirits are widespread. In Tigray, the language of church remains exclusively Ge'ez, which I found very interesting. Like the language of the church is Ge'ez, which is their ancient ancestral language, which they used to speak before it broke off into the three branch languages I talked to you about in previous videos, which is Amhara, Tigray, and Tigrinya. Those languages actually came from Ge'ez, which I found remarkable how they use Ge'ez in their churches. Because if you go to Egypt, the Coptic Christians are still very much there and are still very much alive and are still a significant portion of the population. And on top of that, they also use their Coptic language, which is essentially a more modern version of the Egyptian language, right? So they also use that language predominantly in their church, okay? They no longer speak it, but they use it in their church. So that's one thing I found quite interesting. So Tigrayan society is marked by a strong ideal of communitarianism, and especially in the rural sphere, by egalitarian principles, okay? So a couple things I wanted to note also is that as far as history goes, the majority of Tigrayans trace their origins to early Semitic speakers whose presence in the region dates back to at least 2000 BC. So like I said, they have a Semitic ancestry. Their basically like the language Ge'ez is essentially like a descendant of a southern old Arabian language. I don't want to say old Arabian because you have to be specific with certain languages, but especially it's an ancient language that was in southern Arabia, right? And they essentially migrated into Ethiopia and essentially birthed the ancestors of the modern day Amhara people, which includes the Amhara, Tigray, and Tigrayas. But at that time, they spoke Ge'ez though. So the majority of Tigrayans trace their origin to early Semitic speakers, like I said, and the presence in this region dates back to 2000 BC. Okay, a whole 2,000 years ago. So based on linguistic evidence, right, and known from the 9th century BC from inscriptions, the first possible mention of the group dates back from around 8th to 10th century. Okay, so in which period the manuscripts preserving the inscriptions of Cosmos Indopleustes contain notes on his writings, including the mention of a tribe called Tigretes. So it's spelled Tigretes, and a Portuguese map in the 1660s shows Madri Bahri consisting of the 3 highland provinces of Eritrea and distinct from Ethiopia. So there's 3 provinces of Eritrea, and they're distinct from Ethiopia, which means that like they're hinting at the fact that Tigrays have been there for a while and we're pretty distinct from modern day Ethiopians, okay, or from their other like counterparts or groups. So that the 16th century also marked the arrival of the Ottomans, right? So who began making inroads into the Red Sea area. Okay, and by the beginning of the 9th century, Henry Salt, Egyptologist who traveled in the interior of Ethiopia, divided the Ethiopian region, like James Bruce, into 3 distinct and independent states. These 3 great divisions, based on arbitrarily on the language, are Tigray, Amhara, and the province of Shor, right? So Henry considers Tigray as the more powerful state of the 3. A circumstance arises from the natural strength of the country, the warlike disposition of its inhabitants, and its vicinity to the seacoast, an advantage that has secured to its monopoly of all muskets imported into the country. He divided the Tigray kingdom into several provinces as the center where it was considered the seat of the state, being referred as the Tigray proper, a region around Adwa. If you guys don't know what Adwa is, you might as well look up on Menelik II and the Battle of Adwa, because that was the battle that Menelik pretty much decided Ethiopia was going to be independent from the Italians. It's basically the battle where they slapped the shit out of the Italians and basically kept them out of Africa or Ethiopia. So the province of this kingdom includes Enderta, Agame, Wajarat, Tembian, and Shire. The border between Tigray and the kingdom of Medjugorje Baringesh was the Mareb River, though sometimes Medjugorje includes some parts of the Shire. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the demographics. So the Tigrayans constitute approximately 6% of the population of Ethiopia and are largely small, holding farms and having small communal villages. As stated, they are also Christian and members of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, approximately 96%, with a small minority of Muslims, Catholics, and Protestants, as I stated before. The predominantly Tigrayans populated urban centers in Ethiopia are found within the Tigray region in towns including Mekele, Adwa, Aksum, Adigrat, and Shire. Okay, now the population of Tigrayans are also found in other large places in Ethiopia, such as Addis Ababa, Gondar, and abroad also, like the United States, for example. Okay. Some of the greatest obelisks of Askim, like these giant metallurgic stones that are very tall, these obelisks, or some of them are found in Aksum actually, or the Tigray region. Okay, so the Tigrayans are, despite a general impression of homogeneity, composed of numerous subgroups with their own socio-cultural traditions. Among these, there are the Agame of eastern Tigray mentioned in the Mamutum in the 3rd century, the autonomous Senegale, and the Merete of Akeli Guze in Eritrea. Okay, so the subgroups are composed of descent groups and lineages. Often these are called Deki, sometimes also Ad, after a common ancestor, such as Deki Tesfa of the western lowlands of Syria. Okay, so that's a common thing in most other places, and not just Africa. You know, people are often named after their ancestor, their tribe, like some common belief, such as the Ottomans. Their leader was Osman, right? Like Osman, but like his name Osman in English, or how the West would pronounce it, is Ottoman, right? Or how either the West or the Arabs, how one of them pronounced it Ottoman. But basically, his name was Osman, and then what was his people called after that? The Ottoman Turks, right? So you see that a lot in Africa, and a lot around the world as well. Okay, and as far as their language goes, Tigrinya speak the Tigrinya as a mother tongue. It belongs to the Ethiopian Semitic group of Afro-Asiatic language family. Like I said before, Tigrinya is closely related to Amharic and Tigray, another Ethiopian Semitic languages spoken by the Tigray, as well as many Beja. Okay, so the Amhara, Tigray, and Tigrinya, essentially these languages literally come from like the same place, the Ethiopia Semitic branch, aka they came from like Ge'ez, right? So Tigray and Tigrinya, through many closely related to each other, are linguistically than either is to Amharic are. As far as their religion goes, Tigrayans are mostly Christian with an Oriental Orthodox majority. Alright, so before the coming of Christianity, most Tigrayans followed a pagan religion with a number of deities, including the sun god Utu and the moon god Almaka. Some tribes, however, practice Judaism. Yeah, that's actually very important. A lot of people probably don't know that, but Judaism was actually present in Ethiopia for a very long period of time as well. Now, whether a lot of people get it, a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think like, oh, like, was it really Judaism, or like was it like were they actually descended from Jews, or were they just converted by a small tribe that actually went there? My personal opinion is that they were always Jews, and I don't want to have that convo because like I feel like Jews were like always there, and people don't give them the credit that they deserve. The most prominent polytheistic kingdoms were the kingdom of Damat and early Axum. Okay, Axum eventually converted to Christianity, but even Axum was like polytheistic as well before it did. It became Christian in the antiquity times, and Islam followed suit through the migration from the Arabian Peninsula after Muhammad's companions essentially went to from the Arabian Peninsula to Ethiopia to find safety. Some of the companions went back, but some stayed and essentially converted the people to Islam actually. Okay, so yeah, a lot of their Tigrayans, essentially foods are amazing. Their food characteristics consist of vegetables, often very spicy meat dishes, usually in the form of sesbi, right? A thick stew served as atop a large sourdough flatbread. I ate Ethiopian food. All I'm simply gonna say is, if you haven't, you need to try it out and stop playing games. It's amazing. Okay, so that's it for the Tigrays. Please tell me what you did, the Tigray people. Please do me a favor and tell me what you thought about this video. Leave a like, comment below. What do you know about the Tigrayan peoples that I probably left out? And if you have any other suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Also, please follow my Patreon and follow me on my social media as well. And other than that, I appreciate you guys for watching. Have a great day and take care.